Mostly because they throw a lot of competitions a couple towns over from where I grew up. So just in terms of, for one, I get to compete with the guys that I train with, which is awesome. It's like you go through these training cycles, you all train together. It's like you're kind of all in the fight together. You're kind of all like on the front lines together. You almost feel like on some of those training days, and it's cool to just get to go to the competition with them. You're all helping each other. The energy you get from that is usually awesome. On top of that, my brother usually comes out, so that's good. Other friends close usually get to come out, so that's most of the reason why I like doing RPS meets. Plus, they're just really well ran. Like, the equipment's great. The bars are great. There's never been an issue in warm-up rooms with, lack of weights or anything like that, so. But I don't know. I mean, I just get a lot of shit for it, so it's not looking likely going forward that I will be, and that's unfortunate. But as of now, my next competition is going to be the Reebok Record Breakers meet. I believe it's November 5th out in California at Jesse Burdick's gym. Yo, Johnny Monster's the man. Motherfucker is, yeah, he's got a lot of energy. We try to deadlift elephants. What? I mean, how much does a baby elephant weigh? You could probably deadlift a baby elephant, I imagine. Maybe with like some type of pulley system. Benefit bench with a thumbless grip. I don't know if there is one. I've never done it, but I know people who have only done it. So it seems like whatever you kind of start with, you stick with. So I know people that do bench with a thumbless grip find it very awkward when they try to get their thumb around. I think it also has a lot to do with just forearm tightness. If you're used to benching in a certain way, your hands and your forearms will kind of be developed to bench that way, so it becomes very awkward to go the alternate way. I think Mike Rashid was having that issue. He got kind of nervous at competition because he goes thumbless and he thought he's got to put his thumb around, but most competitions fine either way. So favorite exercise for squat is squatting. I like slow eccentric squats where you go down for about a 5-second count. I prefer those to pause squats. They're really great at building strength. They're really great at working on form, and they're really great at finding your ultimate position to squat in. So those would be my number 2 accessory for squats. How do you figure out a right belt placement for deadlifts? Honestly, you just have to mess around, figure out what works best. You try one way, it doesn't feel right. You try another way another time. Eventually, you just find the right position. For me, I found I actually have to wedge my belt kind of all the way down into my hips. I have other people who like to hold it up high, kind of under the lats. When I tried that way, it just made my lats cramp up. So honestly, you just got to mess around, figure out what works for you. Just try different things and something will click. What else you guys got? Nothing? Any up-and-coming lifters you like so far? Yeah, there's a lot of guys. There's always guys in powerlifting. That's kind of one of the fun thing about this sport. But I know John Rivas is strong. This guy Nate Branthorst, or I want to say his name wrong. He's really strong. I think there's a lot of guys, mostly in the 242s, that are gonna be doing 2100 plus next year. So that's gonna be very interesting. Hopefully, I'm hoping this meet coming up is my last competition at 220, and then hopefully I can permanently move to 242. I mean, I think that's where my better numbers will come from. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of up and coming lifters. I think mostly in the 242 class. Who you like more, Simon or Garrett? I don't know. Do I have to? Is it really a zero-sum game? Do you have to like somebody better? It's kind of an odd question. Favorite accessory for benching, how to break out of a poverty bench. You just have to kind of look at video and figure out where your problem is. For me, the best accessory work is close grip. For other people, spoto presses, if they have trouble with speed off of their chest, things like half reps, you just got to figure out where your weakness is and then attack it. Guys are quiet. What's going on? Who's your best animal athlete friend? I don't know. I mean, I'm not even signed with Animal Pack anymore, first of all. But person I'm probably closest to is Dan Green, I would say. But all the guys are cool, honestly. All the athletes at Animal Pack are pretty awesome, solid guys. So when is the 800-pound deadlift coming? Yo, I'm wondering the same fucking thing. God damn it. Um, we'll see. Hopefully this training cycle. Um, you don't know. I mean, the thing with me is how I pick my competition numbers. It'd be very difficult for it to be an 800-pound deadlift with how I build my totals, because I just don't really go for those all out, you know, go for it type of lifts in competition. But it may go down. I think I'll be capable of doing it at my next competition, but I don't know if I'll actually go for it. It's really just going to depend on how my total's looking. But I mean, I think I'm pretty close to capable. I pulled 800. I mean, I pulled 780 a couple weeks out from my last comp. So, have you ever squatted with squat shoes? Yeah, I used to always squat with squat shoes. What I've realized is that I'm very quad dominant to begin with, and I already have my knees already over my track over my toes too far to begin with. So, squatting in squat shoes actually just makes it worse. It makes it harder for me to hit depth, just in terms of kind of how the angles get rotated forward. So I'm much better off in a flat shoe. Also forces me to sit back more when I use a flat shoe. Can you run us through 4 weeks out from a meet sets and reps coming to the end of a meet? It really depends. They're different for my 3 different lifts. It kind of depends on where the lifts are at that point. I mean, that's a very broad question, but I mean, 4 weeks out for the most part, I'm hitting a lot of triples, max doubles, max singles, things like that. I'm starting to do a lot of just focus on repeatedly setting up for each lift and just getting into comp mode, knowing that on the day of competition, it is going to be one rep, and just focusing on that, just putting all the energy into each rep specifically, not really doing high rep sets or anything like that. I don't really fart when I squat, thank God. I would think that'd be pretty annoying. 1 week out, I usually do my heaviest deadlift 10 days out or so, heaviest squat about 7 or 8 days out, heaviest bench like 5 or 6 days out. How long do you take to peak for a meet? It depends, but somewhere around 8 to 10 weeks. I think I'm like 9 weeks out from my next meet right now, or 8 weeks out, so I'm going to start peaking. How many bicep curls per day? I don't even do bicep curls that much. Mostly because I've always had kind of overdeveloped biceps for whatever reason. So I find when I do biceps too often, it kind of gives me a mental cue to use them when I pull, if that makes any sense. And then, I want to stay away from that. I don't know, you kind of get like that twitch when you do deadlift sometimes. I'm trying to make sure I don't really feel like popping a bicep. But usually if I do biceps, it's on deadlift day after doing deadlifts. I've had to work through a shit ton of injuries. I pretty much strain my hamstring every time I deadlift heavy. Most of my injuries have to do with my hip tightness. So it usually ends up showing itself in hamstrings and quads and the lower back. That's usually where most of my injuries are. Mm. Nose torque. Yeah, sometimes it depends. I didn't use any at my last competition. Sometimes I use nose torque towards, the last couple of weeks before competition. I'll start using it on heavy lifts, and I'll use it in competition, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference for me, in all honesty. Sorry, I think I missed those last couple of questions that went up. Yo, there isn't shit on TV right now. Kind of bored. I think I'm gonna deadlift later. How do you mentally prepare for a hard set? I mean, I used to be a runner, and it's kind of the same thing with getting focused. I just try to tune everything out and just start going over my technique and just telling myself to, specifically what I'm trying to accomplish on that set. Usually has to do with technique, not really thinking about the weight itself. But I usually just run through exactly my cues that I'm going to tell myself at each part of the lift, and just kind of think of that and just kind of focus on that and just think about that over and over. Can you be at full power weight cutting prior to a meet? What's supporting water loading? Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, I've hit most of my PRs after weight cuts. The thing about weight cuts is that when you're putting the weight back on, you get like this super carb up that you really couldn't have gotten otherwise. I think that's kind of like the benefit, which has helped me before. Because I know when I don't cut, when I try to carb up the day before, it doesn't work as well. But after you cut weight, even if you're just cutting a couple pounds and you're just not eating for like 12 hours or 16 hours or something, like the amount of carbs and food you're able to eat after that is like phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, I hit PRs all the time. Doesn't really make a difference to me for whatever reason. I know other people affects them substantially, but weight cuts usually don't affect me. I mean, my last comp it did, just because I started getting dehydrated, so that's kind of another factor. But for the most part, I don't have low energy or anything like that, as long as I get the weight back on. Do the guys you train with help push you, and are they strong? Name some guys, please. Would love to follow. Yeah, I usually tag them in my videos, but they're mostly strong. Not that really matters, in all honesty. I mean, I've trained with guys who were strong before and just mentally weren't there, so it didn't really help. But I've also trained with guys who, I guess, numbers wise or nominally, the weights they move weren't that heavy, but they're fucking mentally awesome people, and they fucking can really drive you. So I mean, that's kind of like the funny thing about powerlifting to me. People kind of get caught up on the numbers a lot, but to me, I'm always like, it doesn't really matter if a guy benches 100 pounds less than me. I'll just slide a plate off the bench, and it looks exactly the same. It doesn't really matter. It's more about mentally how hard that person's pushing themselves. So, in general, I just try to keep people around me who are motivated, people who are, I'd much rather somebody who fucking benches like 250, who's motivated and comes in and wants to kill it every day, than bench with someone, who benches 700 pounds, but he's just fucking annoying as fuck. And, like, that's how I see it. But, no, other people view it differently, I guess. For an intermediate advanced lifter, how frequent to go heavy on deadlift, squat, bench press? Um, it varies. Squat, you can definitely go heavy once a week, I think. Deadlift, most people can go heavy once per week, but some people, it's probably every like 10 days to 2 weeks. Bench press, you can usually, for the most part, I could, if I want to, go heavy twice a week. Probably every third or fourth week, I need to only go once, but I usually just stick to once a week. I haven't really felt that doing it more than once a week helps. Do you know anything about platelet-rich plasma injections for injury recovery? I've never done it. I don't know about the science behind it, but people that I know who have done it seem to love it. But I don't have any background on it to really give an opinion of it. I can't wait for NBA season to start again. Not really a football fan. I'm definitely not a baseball fan. Kilo plates versus regular plates, any big difference? The main difference is on deadlifts. As you'll see a lot of big lifters talk about, it's just a different feel on deadlifts, especially when you're up in like the 7 to 800 range. I actually prefer it. On deadlifts, I don't know, I always train with kilo plates, so I'm used to them now. So if I use the bigger plates, it actually feels kind of weird when I'm pulling, like it feels too bouncy. But they're definitely harder to pull with if you go to a competition and you're used to gym plates. On bench press, it feels better. It feels tighter to me. Same thing on squats.